Hey gang, it is Monday, May 14th, 2018, and this is the long-awaited Brooklyn Pony Part 17. Obviously there's 16 other videos in this series, and for those of you who haven't seen them, I am building or rebuilding a 1966 Mustang convertible. In the last video, I had installed these frame stiffeners from Mustangs to Fear, and in fact, I understand that they had watched my video and they modified their kit. They've added some sort of a bracing system like I put in this one, because this didn't come in that kit. So I haven't checked their videos, but I think I've seen their pictures of their product with that additional material in it. So found that interesting. In that video, there was some concern, or I had some concern with tire clearance. I did install this as per what instructions I could find, and if you'll notice, I'm very close to the forward apron, pretty close on that rear hole for the bumper bracket as well, and of course this strut rod that comes down here. And there wasn't really any solid information that said to put it in any particular location, but in my mind I triangulate, and by having it off at an angle, that helps make it even stiffer, but that may come into effect here at some point. So to that end, we wanted to figure out how to make sure the tires would clear when they're on the car, because once I get to the point of putting on paint, I don't want to go backwards when I can't have a tire clear these add-ons. So the owner of the car contacted this company, Wheelfit, and the owner has sent me this kit, and this is a Wheelfit Pro kit, Pro 45 kit, manufactured by Wheelworks Inc. And there's the website, phone number, tech line, so you can check them out. And I have not opened this kit yet, so we're going to do that in just a minute. But the idea is, this kit allows you to mount this bracket onto your rotor or your spindle, and then you can hang the tire on the perimeter. As I move along, and I want to show you some other things, I've laid out some tires here. Now the owner has provided me with these three new tires from their BF Goodrich radial TAs, and I wanted to show you a difference in sizes. This tire on the right is a 225 60R16. This is one that I had on the Jade Mustang, or came with the Jade Mustang, and that's basically a Ford Explorer wheel. The next one is a 215 70R15, and this one is more in line with what you would normally run on one of these cars as far as a standard size tire. This 215 70R14, that's more in line with what would have come on a stock Mustang. So you can see that there's quite a bit of difference in sizing as you move across. Then you come over to the performance tires, and I've got a 225 45 ZR17, a 245 40 ZR17, and a 255 40 ZR17. Now, in looking at these, I'm thinking that this tire is not going to work on the front, and this tire is probably not going to work on the front either, and we're probably going to be going with this 225, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to open up this kit and go over the pieces that are in the kit, and we'll see what happens. Instructional DVD, that's going to be handy. Some written out instructions to show how to use the tool. And it points out, watch the instructional video before using this tool. So I'm going to take a look at that myself. And just some, looks like some technical data based on a backside setting and width we'll have to look at that and see how that works out. So set that aside. Nicely packaged. Some nice aluminum pieces. Set those aside. And these look like your support brackets, along with some numbers on there, so we'll have to look at that. Appears to have an adjusting screw down here that you can move this in and out, of course. So I'll have a look at that in a minute. The center plate, nice thick aluminum. And a bag of hardware. The rest is just packaging, or let's say stuffing to keep the stuff from moving around. So I'm going to get started on this. I'm going to review that video and we'll go from there. Okay, so per the instructions, it talks about taking what I'm going to call the short leg. This is the shortest piece of the four legs. There's two of these and two long pieces. I'm going to call this a short leg. And if you'll see, it's got some adjustment here on this little clamping device. Now I wouldn't really call it much, as far as a clamp, but it acts more as kind of a spacer. And you can see this has a taper in its bottom here, so it's not really going to get super tight. Really what you're doing is eliminating some of the gap, and you're making this fit the tire that you're using. So you squeeze that back against, tighten up the screw, and really what that's doing is it's eliminating play in the tool. So that gives you something to keep against your tire whenever you do the rest of the assembly. Okay, now that I've set the clamp on the short leg, I want to assemble the three pieces together. So short leg, long leg, L bracket, and then I've got two 1/4 bolts and two wing nuts. One has a plastic cap on it, the other one's just a metal one. Now the idea is you take the short leg and you put it on top of the long leg. And you'll see some numbers on here, and these numbers are not representative of your width of a wheel. That has to do with setting your back spacing number. So anyway, I'll set those two together, and then I'll take the L bracket, set it on the bottom. I will put a 1/4 bolt up through as an assembly, and then I'll take the plastic wing nut and put it on top of that. Now I'll take the other 1/4 bolt, put it through short leg and the long leg by itself, and tighten up the wing nut. And I kind of like this idea because what it does is it allows you, once you set your width, and I'm not set up for that just yet, I'm just showing you, once you set up your width, then you can tighten up the short leg, or the short wing nut, and then you can move your backspace in and out. Now this is also set up to where if you're dealing with a much bigger offset, you can turn this around and also move the bolts around to a different configuration. It's basically however you need it, you can do it. You just have to adjust things around. But this is set up, standard configuration for our application. Now once you get that assembled, you want to compare it to your second one. Now I have not set this up for a specific width on the wheels just yet, so there's nothing to match them to, but at least it shows you that they're both assembled the same way. I wanted to point this out as well. Starting with the wider tire, the 255/40 ZR17, basically you can use an 8.5 to 10 inch rim. On the 245/40 ZR17, you can use an 8 to a 9.5 inch rim, and for the 225/45 ZR17, you can use a 7.5 to 9 inch rim. Now I will point out that from what I can see on the first tire, the wider tire, in a relaxed state, this tire reads out at about 9.25. So I may try to set this up for like a 9.5 inch rim, and we'll see how that goes. On the second tire, the 245/40, you can see in a relaxed state, this one comes in at just a little over 8.5. So again, I may use a 9 inch spread on this one. On the 255/45, it has a relaxed state of just under 8. So 8 may be the width that we want to go with on this one. And again, I point this out because in the video instructions it says to replicate the width of your rim. And if you don't know what rim size you're going to use, well, that kind of gives you an idea. Like this, would probably be best at an 8 inch rim, even though you can use 7.5 to 9. So I'm going to set this one up for an 8 and go from there. I just wanted to give you a point of reference. This rim is a classic Chevy rally wheel, 15x8, and just so you know, the 8 is the inside diameter, or inside width I should say, 8 inches from inside to inside. I decided that I'm going to mock it up, at least for the wider tire, the 255/40. I'm going to mock it up as if it's on a 10 inch rim. And so, as you can see, set that on the ID and that as well. And there's my 10 inches. And I've also set both of them up the same. And I wanted to point this out. On this plate is a 1/2 inch thick. And it's going to get bolted, your assembly gets bolted to that plate, okay? And you're going to use a couple screws and wing nuts, and that's going to set your basically your back spacing. So you have to remember that that plate being a 1/2 inch thick, in this case it looks like I'm set up for a 5 inch back spacing, but I'm actually 4.5 because you have to deduct the width of the plate. And if you add on any other plates or anything like that, like it says in his video, to clear a large caliper or something like that, and you add on another 1/2 inch or whatever the number is, you have to deduct that. So that's where we're at. Currently, this is technically a 4.5 inch backspace. Secondly, based on your rim diameter, these holes, each one of these holes, if you move it up and down on the holes on the plate, each one of those represents a 1/2 inch. Now, I don't know for sure how you determine what would set you up as, say, a 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever wheel. So I know that this tire in particular is a 17, so I'll have to figure that out, and I'll show you what I come up with. Okay, so here I have it assembled. I have the 1/4-20 screws going through and the wing nuts. And of course this face will go onto the brake rotor. If you'll notice, I have it on the 4th hole from the inside, or 4th hole from the outside. So that represents 17 inches. If you match that up on both sides, and I compare the width there, that's right at 17. So essentially, if you were to do this, say, for an 18-inch wheel, you would move this one out 1 hole, move this one out 1 hole, that's going to give you an inch. So you can do up to a 20. So I guess you can look at it this way. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, down to a 14. So just to give you a good reference. And then I'm going to show you how, per the video, he shows how he installs this assembly, not fully assembled, into the tire. You have to take one side off. So let me show you how that works. Now, in the instructional video, it talks about installing this one side at a time, let's say. And obviously you're not going to put all this in there as an assembly. But what I did is I removed one bolt from this side, and that'll allow me to rotate that in. And I'll hook the bottom lip on that side, and then spread the tire. Oops. Spread the tire to where it fits that 10-inch rim width that I talked about earlier. Now, with that bolt in place, I'm going to pivot this off to the side just a little bit. I'm going to hook the bottom lip and then pull up on the tire and hook the top lip, and then rotate this and get that to cam into place. Once it's in place, I can install the other bolt and put the wing nut on. I might save you a step, make it a little bit easier for assembling it. And as you can see, that tire is on there. So I'm going to double check, making sure things are tight before I do anything else. Alright, so as you can see, I have the first tire mounted, and as per the instructions in the video that I watched, it recommended putting washers behind the lug nuts, which is what I did. And then I spun the wheel, or the tire I should say, and I was able, before I made it really snug, I was able to hit the tire a little bit and get it centered up, because there's a lot of room in these slots. So now that I have it, what I feel is pretty close to center overall, I've snugged these down just a little bit better with a 4-way lug wrench. And remember, you're not trying to torque these things, you're just trying to keep it in a steady or fixed location. So far, now this again is the biggest tire. I just want to show you something here. Now this, of course, the ride height is not set. Let me see if I can get a decent angle. The ride height is not set, and I just wanted to show you with this back spacing that I currently have, this is at full extension on the A-arms. I can rotate this, and that's really, you're not going to go any further than that. That is hitting, basically that's the stop. I'm not even, the tire is just touching the frame rail at this point, which I don't think you'd be able to turn that far to begin with. And I'm going to turn it back, and again that's touching the frame rail, and again that's a pretty broad range there. So now what I'm going to do is I'll get my jack, and I will jack up the A-arms and try to get this in a location that would be, similar to the correct ride height. I will also set the fender in place to see how it interacts as well. Okay, this may look cool, but you can see how far it's sticking out. This is basically with the lower control arms parallel to the ground. So that would make sense to me that that's going to be about the ride height, let's say. But I will say, surprisingly enough, at this location, or the way this is set at the moment, I can actually turn the wheel. And it just, we're talking a 1/16 of an inch clearing that fender, and then it comes in and it hits the frame rail. And coming back the other way, again, a 1/16 of an inch. So that is not good. And that is set up with a 4.5 inch backspace. So I'm going to adjust this just to see. I'm going to take it in a 1/2 inch and see what that looks like. Okay, so this would be, the first one was a 4.5 inch. This is a 5 inch. If you could see that, I don't know. I'm at the 5.5 mark, but again, you subtract the thickness of the plate, so it's technically a 5. That actually puts it closer to inside the fender, but not quite. And if I rotate it, it does pretty good, but at almost full rotation, just short of the frame rail, it's hitting this bar. And then rotating it back, it clears everything. It actually goes all the way back and touches the frame rail. I still think this tire is going to be too big. It looks cool, you know, but it's just going to be too big. I'll do one more adjustment, but I know it's just going to get worse as it goes in. But we'll take a look. And doing the adjustment is really easy. You just loosen up those little plastic wing nuts on either side, and then really I'm just going to bump the tire in, and I'm going to make sure that L bracket lands on the 6. Once it's on the 6, I'll tighten it back up, rotate the tire, double check this side. Whoop, a little too far. Make sure that's tight. And we'll have another look at it. And again, technically, even though it's on the 6, it's really a 5.5 inch backspace. So looking at that, that looks pretty nice on the wheel well. But I have a feeling it makes it, well, surprisingly, it's about the same coming back towards that bar. Still a little bit of clearance to the frame, but just touching that bar. So I'll go back the other way. Good clearance on the fender. Yep, clears even that upper support bar that I put in. If I can see, there it is. Yeah. Now again, this is at level. This is at ride height. This isn't driving over something, or but it still puts it pretty close to the lip of the fender, and we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try the other one, the other tire. I'm not going to go in any further than that, but you never know. Okay, so I've made some adjustments. In this case, I moved, let's say, the locking bolt. Instead of being back here, I moved it forward, or inboard, let's say, because I had to bring this in to match a 9-inch wheel. So by moving 2 dips inboard, that narrowed this down to a 9-inch, and then I reset my backspace. This is actually 4.5 because of the 1/2 inch thickness. So it's set on a 5 on both sides, and now I'll get it back in the next size down tire, which is the 245/40 ZR17, and as I mentioned before, it recommends an 8 to a 9.5 inch rim. Okay, this is the 245/40 ZR17 with 4.5 inches of back spacing. It's on the 5, so you again take off the 1/2 inch, and that's pretty nice. Turn the wheel, and this is with the lower control on level with the cross member. So if I turn this forward, or turn it in, almost touches the frame rail, but it also touches that support bar. Going the other direction, it goes all the way to the frame rail in the back, and got about an inch above, sorry, I got a reflection there, an inch or so above or gap between the tire and that support brace. So this one's pretty close. Still has a little bit of room here, but better than that bigger tire. So what I want to do is I'm going to jack this up a little bit. And that gets it a lot. You can see now it's actually touching the fender. So I'm going to change the backspace, take it in a 1/2 inch, and see what that does. This is at 5 inches of backspacing, and you can see it clears a bit more at the top. Rotate the tire in. It does hit that bar, but it would be hitting the frame rail at about the same time anyway. So that's pretty good. And going back, there's no problem at the back. There's still clearance where that bar is. The only thing I want to see is if I, again, jack this up slightly, what it's going to do. And that's, you can see I have negative degrees, let's say, on that lower control arm. And that tucks the tire right up in there, but it starts to hit when I rotate either direction. So I'm going to try one more adjustment on this one, reset to where the jack was, and I'll bump that in another 1/2 inch. I think this might be it. I'm really surprised. This is a 245/40 ZR17. This is with 5.5 inches of back spacing. Nice clearance at the fender well. Rotated forward. It makes contact basically, well, it actually bottoms out on the steering, but it's at the same time just touching that bar and the frame rail at the same time. Turn it to the back, and it's hitting the frame rail like, you know, you would kind of expect it to, but it's clearing that bar up above. I like that. So I'm going to jack it up a little bit, give it some, let's say, negative angle on that control arm, see what happens. Come forward, there it's touching that bar, and it's about maybe 2 inches away from the frame rail. Oops, come to the back, and it is just touching that bar as well. However, this, you're not going to have it at that deep, let's say, in the fender well typically. I bring that down just a little back to level. It fits really nice. I will mock up the other tire, the last tire as well, and get a look at it, and then we'll make a determination as to what's going to be the best fit overall. Okay, so I thought I had come to a conclusion, and I was pretty happy with how this configuration was fitting the car. This is the middle size tire, the 240 ZR17, or sorry, 245 ZR17, and this is on an 8-inch rim width and with a 5-inch back spacing. And I use this as a guide to verify that, I don't know if you can see that or not, that does land on the 5, and that mimics the surface of the rotor. So I was pretty happy with that, and then I decided, you know, I need to do a full mock-up. So what I did was I installed the rack and the sway bar, and let me show you how that turned out. Now, installing the rack, or the rack and pinion, gives me the limit left and right on the steering because it has internal stops. So I can use that as a reference. I can turn that back and forth, and it'll either hit frame or hit the stops internally for the rack and pinion. And that was okay. Things were pretty close to where I needed them. However, on full left turn, and right at, I mean, there's a little bit more to go on that rack, you can see the sway bar end link hits, and what would be the wheel, as mimicked by the tool, also hits. So this isn't going to work. I did have some ideas as to how to modify this slightly. I could shorten the leg on the lower control arm that this attaches to, but it's still going to be a problem. I can only shorten it just a little tiny bit. So I bring this up because I want people to know, as you do this stuff, do the full mock-up. Install everything and make sure everything is going to fit and clear before you proceed. This is part of the reason I paused on this whole process. But having this wheel fit kit and actually having the tires that we're trying to use is going to make it, make this happen. So I think I'm going to have to say that the 245/40 in this case is not going to work, and I'm going to move on and mock up the 225/45 ZR17, and hopefully I don't have any more issues. More coffee. Okay, I think this is it. This is the 225/45 ZR17, 8-inch wide rim and 4.5-inch back spacing. You can hopefully see the numbers there, but if I take this tool and lay it in straight across, sorry it's not very bright, but that's 4.5, and that matches the plane of the rotor. Now with it in this configuration, I have the jack pushing up on the control arm at what I'm going to say is probably about max deflection. In fact, I may have to trim a little bit of the frame right here. The sway bar is actually contacting it slightly, but I don't think you're going to get any higher than that as far as up and down, while you're driving, unless you hit some speed bump really fast. But I like that configuration, and let me show you how it clears various other obstacles. Now with it basically set at normal ride height, I can turn it. It clears that sway bar end length. It doesn't touch the frame rail in the back, and it doesn't interact with any of the other extra bars. So I'm happy with that. Let me show you one other thing that I think is relative. Now I just kind of want to show you this. This is again at, let's say, maximum wheel height, or on the upward swing of the control arms. So just out of curiosity, I took this plank and I laid it across the frame connectors, and I wanted to see what it would be, how it would look relative to the ground. And so this is parallel on the frame connector, and you can see that the tire is just slightly below, so it's very unlikely it'll bottom out at this point, but that gives you just an idea of how close it is at full upward deflection. Now overall, I'm happy with how this looks, the way it moves, but I do want to show you one more thing that I've talked to the owner, and I'm just going to do a slight modification. I'll take the fender off and show you what I'm talking about. Alright, now as I've talked about before, when I did this Mustangs defeater kit, I did get the brace very close to the forward apron, and that seemed to fit everything just fine. As I said before, it's all clearing the tire, so that's not an issue. But what I wanted to show here was, if I rotate this tire all the way to the right, face it, let's say all the way to the left, I should say, it does get a little bit close to that bar, and as you go up, it's going to interact. I can see that now. So rather than cut all of this off, I'm going to modify this bar. It just makes more sense to me. I'll make a relief here and then weld in a new plate, and that'll just give a nice little cutout for that tire for just any kind of clearance. I do have this jacked up slightly, so that also kind of puts it up where it could possibly interact with that. This is at full right or full left turn, and it is close. You know, it is close enough to justify doing some modification. So that's going to be my fix, and I'm going to take care of that next. Now, just to give you some idea of the plan here, again, I've actually jacked this up as high as I think it's ever going to go. I took the Sharpie, laid it on the tire, and followed the shape of the tire. And then I took basically a spacer, a piece of pipe. This is from the rest of the kit for the back. And I set the Sharpie inside of it and rolled it along as well. Now, the reason I'm doing that is I kind of want an idea of how much material I want to remove. So in my mind, this is probably where I'm going to end up going, to this inner, or the bigger piece of removal. You know, I always try to share as much information and details as I can, and I don't cut corners, and y'all know that. I'm a little uncomfortable after cycling around. I put the shock in, I should say, into the control arm, and I cycled it, and I was a little concerned with the travel as far as how far up it went, and I'm sorry I've already taken it apart. But I wasn't comfortable with how close the tire was here, and I've already pointed that out up there as well. So again, I'm showing you something you may run into. If you're going to put in one of these Mustangs to Fear reinforcements, it's going to be a lot better if you already have the tire and wheel and everything you know, or everything you're going to use in hand to verify fitment and location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this pipe. I'm going to cut it loose and bring it up, and that's going to give me more clearance down here where the tire would interact. And I'm still going to do this relief as I pointed out up here earlier. But I don't want anything to cause problems down the road. So again, I don't cut corners, and I want to make sure it's right. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, let me show you what I decided to do. Previously the bar ran from this location here, kind of out at an angle to this location on the torque box. And basically I'm just changing that. I'm moving that inboard. As you can see, I've cut everything loose, cleaned it up, and I barely shortened the pipe at all. And that gave me a lot more room right here. And again, this is all the way up. So I don't see it ever hitting that bar. If it does, something's really wrong. But that's what my fix, and so that's going to take care of the back. Now I'll fully weld that in, but just wanted to show you the difference and how much room there was. Now I wanted to show you that that back bar is fully welded in again, not going anywhere. And I used the plasma cutter to cut a relief. And there you can see the curve, and when I rotate the tire in that direction, and there's still some grinding and blending to do, but you can see how that gives it more relief. And I'll get that cleaned up and make a filler, probably out of the piece that I cut out, and weld that back in, and that'll take care of that as well. Okay, so I think I've shown that I did move that bar, and here's the cutout with the filler welded in. I think that turned out pretty nice. And in the most extreme worst case scenario, it still clears. This would be like in the worst case scenario, like if you went over a jump and you cranked the wheel hard left and landed, then, well, things would be all messed up anyway. But I'm just saying, you're not going to get to this point. But this just satisfies me and makes me feel better about how things are. Had I had something like this wheel fit kit before, I would have been further ahead and been able to mock this up and then assemble that piece. But you know, that's how it goes. So hopefully other people can use this information and help them with their project, and you know, maybe alleviate some stresses. Otherwise, I'm happy with it, and I will do the same thing to the passenger side or the driver's side, and then I'm going to mock up the rear of the vehicle and do the same thing with the wheel fit. Probably I may shoot a video on that, I don't know yet, but I want to get it on my lift so that I can fully move things around and make sure everything's doing what it's supposed to do. So that's going to be it for this video. I believe it ends up being Brooklyn Podium 17, like I was saying. And, you know, sometimes you just have to take a step back to move forward. And that's where I'm at with this one. Like I said, I hope that it benefits other people to see this stuff. And, you know, I'm happy to share it. If I make a mistake or something wrong, I want to fix it. And if it keeps you from making the same kind of mistake or something like that, then that's even better. So better I do it and you learn from it. But that's going to be it for today. And I ask you to, you know, if you like the video, give a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you would be so kind, share the video. There's also going to be a subscribe button somewhere, maybe there, and of course a list to the playlist of the rest of the Brooklyn Pony videos. So that's it, and thanks for watching. More coffee.